Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elle, and I come in peace. Thank you for being here. Today I'm bringing you a mini deep dive on everything we know about the Titan submersible created by OceanGate that recently tragically imploded, killing 5 people. This is something that I've closely followed this week and wanted to talk with you guys about. I have learned so many bits and pieces from all over the internet. It feels like different corners. The news, TikTok, Google, a lot going on, YouTube. And I just wanted to bring you a short video telling you everything you need to know here and why I ultimately feel this was a completely avoidable tragedy. James Cameron is right. Before we get any further into today's video, I did just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being here and watching. Please feel free to hit that subscribe button if you like occasional commentary. We talk about everything from YouTube figures to Taylor Swift's ticket prices to this. Much less often than we do ASMR. This channel is kind of a mix of everything I like on YouTube, and I hope that you will like it too. And yes, she went to law school, and her name is Elle. You don't have to cringe because my eye's twitching now.
Wish me luck, Bruiser.
Before we get into the details of the Titan submersible, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the ocean in general, because some of this I learned for the first time, and some of it I think you've got to know it or be reminded of it to frame where I'm going here. So for starters, you guys know this, but 80% of the ocean is unexplored. So we're technically in the early days of ocean exploration. I would also venture to say we're still in the early days of space exploration. There have been some disasters. There have been things that go wrong. When you are at a new frontier, like the ocean or space, something that is that vast, that unknown, and for obvious reasons, that dangerous, you really do have to allow for the grace of we're learning here. Like there's going to be some mistakes, and we don't even begin to comprehend what all is in that ocean, okay? We don't know. More humans have stepped foot on the moon. More human beings have walked across the moon, well, they've bounced, than have gone to the depth of the ocean where the Titanic is. Just think about that. That's crazy. It is so cold and deep and dark down there where the Titanic remains are. It's basically freezing down there. It's going to be about 31 degrees inside the vessel. It's below freezing. But inside the submersible that you would be visiting the wreckage in, which we'll talk about why you would want to do that, you're going to be cold.
Stuck on the bottom, you can survive for a while because you can stay about 4 or 5 days on the bottom, which not help very much. Because if nobody can help you, and that 5 days is with the oxygen, with the food, with the water and everything like that, but we know very well that we will die before with the temperature.
And not only is it cold down there, you guys, the pressure. I'm sure you've seen tons of TikToks and examples of what that's like. It is literally like if you took the Empire State Building, it's like this, you turned it upside down and dropped it on your toe. That is the most poignant example that there can be of just how much pressure there is at that depth of the sea. I actually took a maritime law class when I studied abroad during law school. The class was called The Law of the Sea, and I found it to be fascinating because who rules the sea? And the answer is nobody. The United Nations has some laws regarding maritime use. However, you don't have to participate or sign on as a country to abide by those laws. The US hasn't done that. Several countries haven't done that. Typically, 12 territorial miles out from the shoreline is going to be where someone's jurisdiction ends. We're talking about the vast expanse of the ocean. Keep in mind that the logistics of all of that, when you're looking back at the search and how everything went down this week, I truly think everybody did the best that they could. I don't think there was any conspiracy theory to anything. It really just is a complicated beast. Like it's a wild no man's land, the sea. The sea is wild. The sea is its own place. Okay, and it's very, very dangerous. All of this to say, bestie, there is an extreme lack of laws or a lack of a requirement to follow existing laws and treaties. And it's also very convoluted and complicated, even when there are some. Now let's talk a little bit about OceanGate, the company behind the submersible that unfortunately imploded, which, if you don't know, is the equivalent of exploding, but instead of outward, inward, due to the pressure within the ocean. OceanGate is a deep sea diving company. Its official name is OceanGate Incorporated. It's privately owned, and it is a US-based business based in Everett, Washington, and it provides crewed submersibles for tourism. That's the one they list first. Industry, research, and exploration. I do find it interesting that they list tourism first. The company was founded in 2009, so it is not very old, by CEO Stockton Rush.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And, I've broken some rules to make this.
Who interestingly married someone whose descendants had died aboard the Titanic, and who himself, I believe, is a descendant of a signer of the Declaration of Independence.
I've broken some rules to make this.
I do think it's fair to say that someone with that much historical significance to their family and family name has probably had a lot of people saying yes to them. Of course, I don't know that. That's just my opinion. So what happened, if you didn't see a quick recap? The Titan, 2 letters short of the Titanic, was a deep sea submersible. So what that means, it is not a submarine. But we're talking about a vessel with very little directionality, pretty much just up, down like an elevator. It has tiny little propellers that spin around. For the most part, it is supposed to sink of its own accord and weight down to the ocean floor. It is then supposed to rise up with a fair amount of ease because it drops weight or ballast. It's also really guided and directed in terms of how it knows where to go to find the Titanic debris by its mothership. It's the ship at the top. It is the one providing GPS directions. OceanGate specifically received its updates and communicated via text message. So you probably guessed it, but OceanGate, in terms of tourism and this deep sea submersible, the Titan, really wanted to focus on visits to the Titanic wreckage. My opinion on that, which I'm happy to share with you guys, and I'm interested in your opinion down below. My husband, he feels it is scientifically interesting to go visit the Titanic wreckage. And to that, I agree. I also overall feel it's a graveyard. Why are we going to a graveyard? It's a graveyard with no bodies, most importantly. I think it frustrates me because it's so unnecessary to visit the Titanic at this point. She crashed in 1912, or she crashed into icebergs and sank in 1912. We have gone down many, many times since. Private, commercial submersibles have gone down. Scientists and experts have gone to visit. We've even had ROVs, unmanned vehicles, go down and actually take photos. I believe in 2017 they took beautiful, I mean, you will never match the quality of these photos because they're 3D photos. And moreover, she had a sister ship. All of it is identical. So if you're interested in, what did the Titanic teacups look like? What did the tile in the first class breakfast room of the Titanic look like the exact other ship that the company built? It's fine. We know, How far down is the Titanic? Pretty far down, guys. It is 13,000 feet, or about 3,900 meters down below sea level. It is way, way, way down. It's just at a pressure where the Navy, like for example the US Navy and potentially the naval equivalent of military in your country, do not operate. Okay, they don't go at that level. Like, we're not at those levels yet. That's too deep for them. Okay, but not for tourists, according to Stockton Rush.
I've broken some rules to make this.
And you guys, I just want to say, I know I have some strong opinions in this video, but my opinions about safety and what's reasonable or what I think could potentially happen legally here, that doesn't mean I don't have empathy for the lives lost. My condolences and my heart truly go out to the members of the family, to everyone in the world, especially to the members of the family, because I know that a lot of us have been devastated by this. Learning how terrifying and scary this whole situation is and all the layers to it, and also how tragic these people were lost. I can't actually fathom what their families are going through, how they're comprehending it. And my heart does go out to them, because I definitely think you can have sympathy and empathy for death and for human lives being lost needlessly. And you can also feel that it was a completely avoidable situation that maybe you would put yourself in, maybe you would never put yourself in. I'm very interested in your take, so keep watching till the end. Let me know your thoughts. So the Titan departed for its 14th visit to the Titanic wreckage on Sunday, Father's Day, June 18th. And by that evening, they had not been heard from for several hours. For whatever reason, the mothership waited about 8 hours to let the Coast Guard and anybody else that could help it know what was going on. I think that's really strange. I don't think it's conspiracy strange. I think it's negligent strange. We now know it wouldn't have made a difference. We don't know if that's their internal protocol for situations like that. Again, they're a privately owned company. They're not regulated by any government body or regulatory agency, and they did not get the sort of accepted and approved standard in the industry licenses or tests done in order to run and operate this tourism company. Okay, they didn't do that. Would I have as strong feelings about them not doing that if they were purely experimental and scientific? No, because again, like I said, the sea is the wild, wild west. Get in,
loser. We're going shopping.
we're going to figure it out as we go. That is not what you do with non-scientists and tourists and people's lives, in my opinion. So the sub lost communication about midday Sunday. By Sunday night, we're all finding out about it. I actually didn't find out about it until midday Monday, but the search was on shortly thereafter for the missing vessel and the 5 crew members on it. I believe the hope at the time was that maybe they were out there just slowly running out of oxygen, either at the bottom of the sea or floating somewhere on top. But what was really crazy for me this week, you guys, and I want to know if it was the same for you, was learning everything that I did about this vessel, about this company, and about all of the other issues it's had and all of the warnings that people within the company have received. There have been lawsuits related to this company. I mean, there's a couple suing the company because they paid a deposit to go on this trip. I mean, can you imagine, first of all, being this couple and you didn't end up going? It's also since come out, you guys, that a former employee and, in fact, the director of marine operations for OceanGate, David Lockridge, was sued by OceanGate after OceanGate fired him for voicing safety concerns in a meeting about 5 years ago in 2018. We know, due to lawsuits that have been filed and what is being pled in these public documents, Titan was, in David Lockridge's opinion, unsafe and needed to pay the expenses and take the time, which it can be up to a 2 to 4 year process. That is what David Lockridge encouraged. And he was actually fired shortly after that meeting, asked to collect his belongings in about 5 minutes and get the hell out of OceanGate. David Lockridge has since sued them for wrongful termination. He was doing what was right and pressing them to follow the same standards and certifications and processes that everyone else in this very small, still developing, yes, industry follows. It needing to go through these standards, the integrity of the vessel being questionable, all of that turned out to be true. I've seen a lot of interviews with Stockton Rush. He was very proud of the fact that this vessel was experimental and that nothing else of its kind existed. And he was proud to be doing things in a different way. And there's just a quote, this will be ingrained in my mind for the rest of my life now.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, you're remembered for the rules you break. And, I've broken some rules to make this.
Apparently, all throughout 2018, OceanGate faced, and this is directly from the New York Times, similarly dire calls to that of David Lockridge from more than 36 people that are industry leaders in this, again, very small industry. So it means a lot. Deep sea explorers, oceanographers, all calling on OceanGate and Stockton Rush to not forego the traditional assessment needed. So why is everyone so upset? Why are people focused, more on the wrongdoing and what happened here than the loss of the lives of these 5 people? And I don't know that they necessarily are, but is it valid? Yes, there can be both, empathy, sympathy, and condolences for those lost. Very much is the case and should be the case. Also, we should be protecting ourselves as potential tourists and just citizens of this earth and of the ocean, which belongs to everybody, to really question what happened here, because a lot happened that shouldn't have happened if industry standards were followed, if proper testing was done. The death of these 5 people could have been completely prevented. James Cameron has really been scrutinized this week, and he's been making the interview rounds. The fact of the matter is, whether you know that or not, I, as a Titanic 90s kid, very much know this. James Cameron is James Cameron, the creator of Terminator and director of the movie Titanic and all of that amazing stuff in Hollywood and pop culture. He is a phenomenal director and figure in Hollywood. However, he's also an expert deep sea diver. He has dove down to the Titanic site more than 33 times, and he is quite experienced. And he's very, very wealthy, right? He's used all of the wealth that he has to fund his interest in the science of the deep sea and the exploration of it. I think he's a perfect example of the way it can be done and the way it should be done. I think really the main issue that made the Titan not commercially sound as a vessel and just unsafe for tourism in general, and really unsafe for anybody, because it, again, wasn't tested ever. I think a lot of corners were cut just from what I've learned, and I'm no expert in this field. Again, this is all just my opinion. Titan was built with carbon fiber material, when steel or just a non-compound type of material is recommended in the industry. It's, to me, a huge problem when you're going against the recommended standards and you're in interviews saying, there's a reason you don't do that. Well, I did that.
Carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
I think really for me, the problem with all of this and why I am so frustrated is the fact that OceanGate was using carbon fiber when that's just not recommended for deep sea travel. The Titan submersible had been down to the Titanic site 13 times, and this would have been its 14th trip. So you can imagine, and it's only been going since 2020, you guys, only since 2020. I truly do feel, you guys, that using the incorrect material and taking the 13 other trips down with a submersible that's built with material that does not favor deep sea compression and can't withstand it, degraded the integrity of the vessel. It's sad. It's sad, and it's that kind of sad where you're like, come on now. It's really frustrating that this even needed to happen. It feels completely avoidable. We've seen people, James Cameron, go down to the Titanic 33 times by himself in a vessel that I believe took him 7 to 8 years to design. Just go watch one of the mini interviews he did this week. But he's ultimately right in everything that he's saying. This is This is a tourism business. OceanGate is and should be was. I mean, they should shut down. They don't need to be doing business with the public because they don't have the public's safety in mind. You can argue that a billionaire or, a famous person or somebody like that isn't the general public, but I think if you're operating something for tourism purposes, you can hand somebody a pen and a clipboard, have them sign a waiver, and you can say, yeah, you're a scientist now. Isn't this cute and fun? How innovative and cool and different and unique and not like your dad we are. We're cool. Look at the Logitech controller we use. You know what that is, right? Video games. You want to save the princess or do you want to drive the ship? You can do either. I just think it's not even it is sad, but it's also infuriating, maddening, and makes me think about the privilege and the lack of being told no when you have wealth at that level and you can create your own private company and fund it and have friends that can fund it. It becomes a literal danger to society. You are taking people on a tour of the Titanic wreck site. That is tourism. Yes, we all sign a waiver when we get on a cruise ship, but I'm getting on that cruise ship thinking, okay, I'm sure you built this the right way. If a tragedy happens, yeah, I got on a cruise ship, but I damn well better be on a cruise ship built out of all the right materials that's not going to try to get to New York the night early and literally take us through an ice field and sink us. And the irony of all of that and ego and not listening to the warnings of others is not lost on me. I know it's not lost on any of you guys. We don't even need to talk about it because it's so obvious. Overall, I just think it is sick, sad, and I really wonder what will happen in terms of the families potentially suing OceanGate. Are the wives going to sue? I've seen a lot of news outlets such as TMZ, if you want to call them news. I mean, I've also seen a lot of legitimate news sources talking about how families likely won't sue. Waivers mention death 3 times. Now, look, I'm a baby attorney compared to probably the experts that they interviewed. I'm not trying to say I'm an expert by any means because I'm not. But my first thought, as someone who is pretty passionate about torts, which is personal injury law, is, oh, really? Are you sure about that?
You sure about that? You sure about that?
You've probably been in a situation where you've had to sign a waiver. A waiver is you waiving your legal right to sue. There's also really an important thing I don't want us to forget here, and that's the idea of public policy. And that's very important in the tort system. There's this idea called the interest of public policy, and sometimes a law may be developed or better understood or slightly changed or changed entirely because of this idea of what's best in terms of the public, how to better protect all of us. Okay, maybe the law said this at the time, but in the interest of public policy, it really maybe needs to be interpreted this way. Public policy is that idea first of we need a good society, a just society, and we must protect the people within it. Be interested to see how that's interpreted and if that would actually hold up. If it was me, if it was my husband or my dad, whoever it may be, a loved one that I had any tie to in that capacity, in a legal capacity, you bet your ass I would be suing. I don't care the waiver they signed. It could obviously just all systems fail and hit the bottom too hard. The situation we thought they might be in, something went wrong and they were on the ocean floor or ocean top floating around, slowly running out of oxygen. You get into a spacecraft or a deep sea vessel, and I think you do have to know reasonably there is a risk of death there just by the place you're going and where we are in our level of travel of both of those places. Do you get into that vessel knowing what carbon fiber is versus steel? Are you an expert in building those vessels? Or do you get in it with that certain level of thinking, they're the experts, they've done their research, they've done their testing. The waiver does say that OceanGate has never been officially licensed or tested. However, I think this could be a landmark case, truly, in sort of setting the standard of what is acceptable, because we're not talking about just Stockton Rush took it down that day. It's his private company, his private toy. He likes to go to the Titanic site. He took it down that day and unfortunately imploded. No, we are talking about 3 of the 5 people on that craft being tourists. We're talking about a father and son and a world-renowned explorer and Guinness World of Records holder. And they're gone now. And it was totally preventable. I really am interested to know your guys' thoughts on this. Please share them down below. Let's have an interesting conversation about this. And I'm also not trying to say that or have anything in this video indicate that, I'm like sitting here eating my popcorn just casually interested in this. I really was so sad and had sleepless nights and floored by this all week. Again, to the point that I truly can't imagine how the family of those lost are feeling. And my heart goes out to them. And I think if I'm being honest, my heart goes out to every single one of them. But to 3 of them, deeply. And to 2 of them, I feel that they truly knew what they were getting themselves into, or they truly didn't care. They thought they knew better due to their power, position, wealth, and they just were doing what they wanted to do.
Carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
I didn't know this was happening before. But can you imagine if it had been successful and we had all of these people talking about, and they do it with a Logitech controller, and it's totally the first of its kind. It's like nothing else out there, and they didn't need anybody else. But that's just not the reality. And I think that's what 2 people, and especially Stockton Rush, wanted, and he really wanted to be remembered, and I think he will be. I hope that the families get justice. I disagree with all the articles I'm seeing about the waiver being airtight. I mean, just the structural integrity of the ship and all of the behind the scenes pleas of industry experts to please get testing, get certified, stay safe. You could be doing something catastrophic. I really think that would weigh against the tightness of the waiver. We are going to have to wait and see what happens with any sort of investigations, any sort of lawsuits. And if you guys are interested, I will be happy to talk about it when the time comes. That's it for this video. I'm gonna go, you guys. It's Saturday here. It's sunny. I floated down the river this morning, and I'm going to get margaritas and then go bowling tonight in like an old school 90s bowling alley. And I can say that because I'm a 90s baby. Old school is cool school. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me how your weekend's going. Tell me your thoughts on everything with the Titan. And thank you for your time. Until next time, and in case I don't see you, Earthling, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.